In this video, we're going to study the translation of the Latin text, St. Jerome's Latin translation of the Gospel of John, chapter 1, verses 21 through 25. As usual, we'll read through the text in Latin and then walk through the translation word by word. Remember that everything I write on the board here is available for you in the printed lesson, all typed out and complete. So relax and follow along and listen to the Latin and pay attention, and know that you can see all of this and study it in detail when you take a look at your printed lesson. All right, so let's study together verses 21 through 25. Et interrogaverunt eum, quid ergo Elias est tu? Et dicit non sum. Propheta est tu? Et dicit non. Dixerunt ergo ei, quis es? Ut responsum demos his qui miserunt nos. Quid dicis de te ipso? Ait ego vox clamantis in deserto, dirigite viam Domini, sicut dixit Esaias propheta. Et qui misi fuerant, erant ex Phariseis, et interrogaverunt eum, et dixerunt ei, quid ergo baptizas, si tu non es Christus, neque Elias, neque propheta. This is our text for verses 21 through 25 of chapter 1. So now let's walk through the translation. Et interrogaverunt eum, and they asked him. Et, and, interrogaverunt, they asked. Eum, him. The priests and Levites, remember, we learned about them in the previous lesson. The priests and Levites were sent from Jerusalem, and they came and they asked John the Baptist, eum. They asked him, quid ergo? Elias est tu? Quid ergo? What then, or therefore? Elias est tu? Elijah, are you? What then? Elijah, are you? So they're coming and they're asking John who he is. He's obviously someone significant. He's a prophet living out in the wilderness. Remember? He's living out in the wilderness. All of the people are going out to him, confessing their sins and being baptized. The Jews in Jerusalem send priests and Levites out to see what's going on. And the men that are sent ask John and try to find out, who in the world are you? Are you Elijah? And this is because in the Old Testament there were prophecies or predictions that one day Elijah would return to Israel. The famous prophet Elijah would come again. And you'll see these questions that are asked. Are you Elijah? Are you the prophet? Are you the prophet? Or are you a prophet? And then, we'll go on and look at this in detail. But you see the questioning of the Jews who come out to see who John the Baptist is and try to figure out what's going on. So, and they asked him, quid ergo Elias est tu? What then? Are you Elijah? And he said, and John said, non sum. Not I am. And I'll keep the word order, but you understand it means I am not. Are you Elijah? And John says, I am not. Propheta est tu? And profeta, remember in Latin there's no article, so it could be, are you the prophet or are you a prophet? And we'll translate this as the prophet here. Are you the prophet? Now, the reason I say the prophet was, again, because there was a prophecy in the Old Testament that said, where Moses said about the future, he said, a prophet like me will come. And he was referred to as the prophet. So, profeta es tú. Are you the prophet? And the reason why we won't say, are you a prophet, is because John answers no. John certainly was a prophet. Okay? He certainly was a prophet. But he was not the prophet. Are you the prophet? And he says, what he actually says here is non, which means not. So it's the same expression, non sum, not I am not. Here we have not, and I am is understood. Okay, non means not. Verse 22, dixerunt ergo ei. Dixerunt, they said, ergo, therefore, ei, to him. Therefore they said to him, quis es? Who are you? Ut responsum demos, so that ut responsum demos, we may give, ut responsum demos, that we may give a response, his qui miserunt nos, to those who sent us. So after trying two guesses, are you Elijah? I am not. Are you the prophet? I am not. Okay, who are you? Tell us who you are so that we may give a response to those who sent us. And they continue, quid dicis de te ipso? Quid, what? Dicis, you say, or do, I should say, do you say? What do you say, de, about, te ipso, about you, or we could say yourself. What do you say about yourself? Now, you see I wrote te ipso here as one word because that actually is a Latin word, te ipso, yourself. But I think in the printed lesson it's actually two words, te ipso. If it's te ipso, two separate words, the translation would be, what do you say about you yourself? But if te ipso are combined to form one word, it's just yourself. Okay, so quid dicis de te ipso? What do you say about yourself? And in verse 23, John answers, ait, he said, comma, quote, this is John's answer to the question, who are you? Who are you? Well, here's John's answer. Ego, I, and the verb am is understood here. I am vox clamantis in deserto. I am, and we'll say the, voice, vox. The voice, clamantis, it's genitive, so it's going to be translated of, and we'll say of crying. Actually, of one crying. Ego vox clamantis. I am the voice of one crying in deserto, in the desert. We'll put desert here, since the Latin is deserto. In English, this is often translated wilderness. I am the voice of one crying in the wilderness. I am the voice, ego vox, of one crying, clamantis, in deserto, in the desert, in the wilderness. And what is he crying? I am the voice of one crying in the wilderness, and this is what he's crying. Dirigite, make straight. Viam, the way. Domini, of the Lord. Dirigite viam Domini. That's the message that John is crying or shouting in the wilderness. Dirigite viam Domini. Make straight the way of the Lord. Sicut, just as. Sicut dixit, just as said Esaias, I'll write the English spelling, Isaiah, propheta, the prophet. Closed quote. So the Jews ask, who are you? That a response we may give to those who sent us. What do you say about yourself? And John's answer, which is very significant. You see, the Gospel of St. John is revealing to us here, under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, he's revealing who John the Baptist is. He's doing this through the questioning of the Jews. The Jews ask, who are you? John is clarifying, saying, no, I'm not Elijah. No, I'm not the prophet. Well, then who are you? So that we may give a response to those who sent us. What do you say about yourself? And here we have John's answer explaining who he is. I am the voice of one shouting in the desert, make straight the way of the Lord, just as said the prophet Isaiah. So the Jews are wondering if he's someone significant. And he says, yes, I am. I'm the person that the prophet Isaiah spoke about. Okay? So John gives them what they want. He tells them, I am someone significant. I'm the person that the prophet Isaiah spoke about hundreds and hundreds of years ago. I am the voice of one crying in the desert, make straight the way of the Lord. Verse 24, we learn about a little more about those who were sent to ask John. We learn et and qui, they who, missi fuerant. Missi fuerant. Literally, we can translate this as, and they who sent were. So there's a nice, simple, literal translation. But as you'll learn later in your grammar studies, this expression is better translated as, and they who had been sent. They who had been sent, erant, were, ex, out of or from, were out of Pharisees, that group of Jews known as the Pharisees. Okay? So it was Pharisees who were sent to ask John who he was, and here in this passage we have John's response. I am the voice of one crying in the wilderness, make straight the way of the Lord. I'm the one who Isaiah the prophet spoke of. Those who had been sent were of the Pharisees. Verse 25. Et interrogaverunt eum, We already translated that back up here in verse 21. And they asked him, et interrogaverunt eum, et dixerunt ei, and they said ei to him, quid ergo baptizas. And note that here we see quid, up here we saw quid, up here we translated quid as what. Here we're going to translate quid as why, which is another meaning for the Latin word quid. Why, ergo, why therefore, baptizas, do you baptize? Why therefore do you baptize? C2, if you non es Christus, not are the Christ, nor Elijah, nor the prophet. Why therefore do you baptize? Si tu non es Christus, if you not are the Christ, neque Elias, nor Elijah, neque propheta, nor the prophet. If you're not Elijah, nor the Christ, nor the prophet, why then do you baptize? What is the significance of your baptism? So going back to the beginning, let's read the Latin text again and walk again through the translation. Remember, all of this is in your printed lesson, so just pay attention to the translation and the general, pay attention to the pronunciation and the general translation, and then you can study it in detail in your printed lesson. Et interrogaverunt eum, quid ergo Elias estu? Et dicit non sum. Propheta estu? Et dicit non. Dixerunt ergo ei, quis es? Ut responsum demos his qui miserunt nos, quid dicis de te ipso? Ait, ego vox clamantis in deserto, dirigite viam Domini, sicut dixit Esaias propheta. Et qui misi fuerant, erant ex Phariseis, et interrogaverunt eum, et dixerunt ei, quid ergo baptizas, si tu non es Christus, neque Elias, neque propheta. And they asked him, what then, Elijah are you? And he said, I am not. The prophet are you? And he says, I am not. They said therefore to him, quis es? Who are you? Ut responsum demos his qui miserunt nos, so that a response we may give to those who sent us. Quid dicis de te ipso? What do you say about yourself? Ait, he said, John said, ego vox clamantis in deserto, I am the voice of one crying in the desert. Dirigite viam Domini, make straight the way of the Lord. Sicut dixit Esaias propheta, just as said the prophet Isaiah. Et qui misi fuerant erant ex Phariseis, and they who were sent were out of the Pharisees. And they asked him, and they said to him, quid ergo baptizas, si tu non es Christus, neque Elias, neque propheta? Why therefore do you baptize, if you are not the Christ, nor Elijah, nor the prophet. So they continue their questioning. Obviously, John's going to respond to this and explain and answer their questioning. But this is the text and translation of verses 21 through 25 of chapter 1 of the Gospel of St. John. You can watch this video again if you'd like to learn the translation by going along with me in the video. Or you can just use this as a pre-lection or introduction to your printed lesson, which you can study in detail. Regardless, you can get to work now on your translation exercises. You've heard the entire text read. You've seen me walk through the translation. All of this is available in your printed lesson, so it's time for you to get to work, do your translation exercises, study your vocabulary, and master John chapter 1, verses 1 down through 25. I hope that's a helpful introduction. God bless your studies.